Welcome to the place where we learn about improv, 'cause public speaking can take you so far. Improv speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking. Improv speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking.
Welcome, everyone, to the Improv Speaking podcast. So excited that you're joining us today. Woo! This episode is a pretty special episode. They're all special episodes. Who am I kidding? But this one's a little different because I'm, one, recording with my best friend, Susan Bartley, and two, we're recording in the same room together. That's kind of wild for me.
This is pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Usually, the beauty of online recording, you can record with someone from anywhere, so that's awesome. But being in the same room is kind of interesting and different. I'm excited.
Me too.
And for our listeners, you might see on our social media clips, we are wearing matching tank tops right now. We look super cute in our Heaux Apparel tank tops. And this is going to be a fun episode.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest today, who focuses all about creativity, and she does improvisation, even though she doesn't call it improvisation, calls it freestyling, and public speaking in her social media ads. Does it all, everything I focus on, just with a little different spin. So let me tell you about our guest, Susan Bartley. Susan is based in Columbia, South Carolina, and she is the owner and founder of Heaux Apparel, which is a pole fitness apparel and pole accessories company, which is super cool. Can't wait to get into that. The goal of Heaux Apparel is to help women of all shapes and sizes who have found and who have fallen in love with pole and aerial fitness. Susan is also a personal trainer, kettlebell instructor, Be Activated facilitator, and powerlifter. She is actually training for 2 powerlifting meets in 2023. And fun fact for you all, Susan was the officiant for my wedding in 2016, and she's my best friend and so much more. Please welcome the one, the only, the very talented, super special to me and lots of other people, and for you all soon to be, very special too as well, Susan Bartley.
Woo! Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me, Dana.
Yes, thanks for being on. This is so cool to record.
It's pretty amazing.
In person. We've had a whole day of working out. We actually have a whole day planned with each other. This is Friendship Day.
This is Friendship Day.
Friendship Day. And we have worked out already, did some kettlebells and some benching.
We did.
And then we had lunch. And then we're going to go do a lyra, sexy lyra
Exotic,
session,
sexy lyra session. Yep.
which I'm very nervous about. A little nervous about. If you add sexy to anything, it kind of freaks me out. And then we're going to go get dinner. So it's a whole day of friendship that we're having. Oh, and recording this podcast.
Yep.
So this is pretty awesome. For our listeners, Susan and I met in 2007 when I came to her gym. At the time, it was called SC Barbell. I was looking for a personal trainer. At that point, I had 3 knee surgeries within 2 years, and I had done all the therapy, but I just needed help strengthening, getting my legs back into shape. So I worked with Susan to train me for about 6 months or so, I'd say, and Susan was super cool and fun and easy to talk to. She made me work really hard, which was tough, but also we had good conversation in between the sets while resting. And then I started taking her kettlebell classes every Tuesday and Thursday that I could attend. And we just became best friends, I would say.
Yeah.
Is that how you remember it?
That's exactly how I remember it. You came in and you were young and you were nervous about your knee. And I had just gotten certified in kettlebells. I had just sort of started training people. And so we were both sort of new to it. I think you may have been one of my very first clients.
You could have fooled me because I needed all the help I could get. So you pushed me in all the right ways. And I remember doing like squats with my heels lifted and then having to face a wall. And so not leaning too far where you hit the wall. And it's like, this is hard. So you pushed me in all the right ways. It was a good match.
It was a good match. It was easy because you had graduated from physical therapy, but you weren't ready to do anything super hard. So we were able to keep it kind of light and just work on movement.
Yeah, and I really liked the kettlebells too. I don't know what drew me into the kettlebells. One, it's a good workout, makes you breathe really hard and heavy. It's a good cardio and strength workout. I remember the first time doing kettlebells with you, I couldn't walk for 4 days. Like getting in and out of the car, I was like, oh my God, what just happened?
Well, you hadn't been able to do anything to strengthen your glutes or your hamstrings. So you'd been sort of hamstrung by injuries. And the thing about kettlebells is you could get all of that work and it didn't stress your knees. So it's sort of cool that you came in and you found us, because I was certified in the one thing that would allow you to do actually athletic type of moves and yet not freak you out about your knee.
Yeah. You put that in a much better sense. That probably is exactly what happened and why I was so drawn to them too. And it was fun. Like once I graduated from training with you, I started doing the kettlebell classes you did on Tuesday and Thursday nights. And then you had Saturday mornings, which I didn't usually make the Saturday mornings. Yep. Okay, as a 20-year-old in college, making Saturday morning exercise classes is very hard. It's very hard. But it was a nice little community that you'd have doing kettlebells.
It was a lot of fun people.
Yeah, we'd all swing together and share. Once we caught our breaths, we would share what's going on in our lives. It was really fun.
Yeah, that was a nice time.
And it kind of dwindled eventually, just, people leave over time, and it dwindled down to like us two, maybe a third person or fourth person. It kind of became more kettle therapy at some point.
I think so. Our motto was, you don't have to give 100%, you just have to show up. And I actually took that and made it into a t-shirt for Heaux Apparel. So it sounds kind of silly, but in truth, if you just show up and you do something, it's better than if you had not shown up and you hadn't done anything.
That is half the battle sometimes. One is like getting to the gym or whatever you're trying to train for, getting to the gym and then just walking in. And once you do the thing, it always feels better. It always feels like no one ever says like, oh, I hate that I worked out today, but just getting in there.
Well, and the cool thing about kettlebells, I say it's the only thing out there where you could really work out for 20 minutes a day and get in shape. A lot of things claim that, but for kettlebells, you can. So if you have an hour, so if you can get 20 minutes worth of work stretched out to an hour, there's plenty of time for therapy.
That's so true. There was a lot of like debriefing, like this happened, I need to talk this out, and then we'd be swinging or snatching and all kind of angry doing it, but then after it felt great. Got a workout and a therapy session. Two for one.
We used to laugh because there were only a couple of men over the years that ever joined, and those were some tough ass men willing to come and listen to a bunch of women complain about their day or their boss or whatever.
Well, they wouldn't even make it usually through the first workout because their back would lock up. They would try to do too much weight and try to swing too high. Their back would hurt. They'd be laying on the floor all flat, trying to get their back to calm down. So, yeah, they didn't.
There's only Derek, I think, as I recall.
Yeah.
Remember Derek? There's only Derek.
And that was a while ago.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. There were a few that came and tried it, but they never stayed.
He was the only one that came consistently.
You kind of mentioned like you like kettlebells because it's a quick and fast workout. What drew you to kettlebells?
So that's kind of a long story. In my powerlifting career, which was not great, but my ex-husband was a professional powerlifter, and the group of people that he was training with at the time to compete at the top level were always looking for that one thing that would give them the edge. And there's an older gentleman at the gym, and he came in one day with a DVD and was like, we need to learn this. So we popped the DVD in the TV. We watched it. We had one kettlebell. Everybody started using it. But that year we went to the Arnold. He competed at the Arnold Classic at the WPO powerlifting. And Pavel Tsatsouline, who is the one that brought kettlebells to the United States from Russia, was there. And he has an interest in powerlifting. So universes aligned. Pavel came backstage at the powerlifting meet to help Mark with his deadlift. And then a month later invited Mark and one of his training partners for free to come get certified.
Cool.
So they went and got certified, and I'm not one to be left out.
Of course not.
So they came back, and I think 6 months later, then I went and got certified. But we could see the benefit. It was a good way. You could train your cardio. You could do your accessory work. You could keep your glutes and hamstrings strong and agile without having to squat as much or deadlift as much. It just, the benefits or the crossover benefits were so strong for powerlifting, but then also for other sports.
Yeah. And for certification, you have to do the snatch test, right?
You do have to do, women have to do 100 snatches with a 16 kilogram kettlebell, 100 snatches in 5 minutes. And a 16 kilogram kettlebell is like 36.6 pounds.
Right.
And they're single arm snatches. So roughly 50 an arm. It doesn't have to be 50 an arm. It can, but to get that in 5 minutes is not easy.
It is not easy, and we are still keeping that going. We took a little break, probably like a 2-year break or so. When I lived in Columbia, we would do it every session. We'd try to get it, and I think we got really good at it, where we were hitting it every time. And then if you don't do it, you lose it real quickly. Yeah. But we've started doing. I think we've been meeting at least for a year now on Zoom every Thursday morning. Ish. Sometimes it changes, but 10 her time, 10 Susan's time, 7 a.m. my time, which, there's not a lot of things that get me up in the morning, and I wouldn't usually do kettlebells on my own, but meeting with you, it always makes it a little easier.
It makes it a lot easier for me as well.
And we've been hitting it lately. We do the whole, I don't know if I'm going to hit it today. I'm just going to do what I can. I'm just going to show up today. And then we put some Bob Marley on or some Beastie Boys, and then we crank it out. And that wasn't that bad. Yeah. Snatching to Bob Marley is actually very helpful. Yeah. Doing anything to Bob Marley, because I think he's got the perfect tempo in all of his songs. Like, it's like, I don't know if it aligns with your heart chakra or whatever, but there's anything you can do. If you do it to Bob Marley, you're going to excel. Yeah, I agree. I'm just now learning that, and it's very helpful to know. Yes. Well, and I promise we're not going to talk about kettlebells the whole time, but it is a very fun thing. If you haven't tried kettlebells, don't try it on your own. Make sure you watch videos. Make sure you get someone to help you with the form. But it's a great workout. It's an amazing workout. Mm-hmm. And the snatches it's equivalent. The 5-minute snatch test is equivalent to running. Like, it gets my heart rate up like I'm sprinting. So, not to be a nerd, but a master trainer for the kettlebell school years ago did a master's thesis on VO2 max and the 5-minute snatch test versus the other ways that they test VO2 max. And the 5-minute snatch test excelled beyond any other form of testing VO2 max. That's super cool, because I remember in my exercise science classes in undergrad having to try to test for VO2 max on the treadmill, and that's a hard test. It's a hard test. I think the exertion that you have to get to the levels they need you to get on a treadmill or on a bike, it's a lot harder to get athletic people to those thresholds. But with the kettlebell, you're there quickly. Yeah, for sure. And Pavel had a quote, and I'm trying to remember it, but it was something like, if civilization ends, only rely on things you can carry. Oh, yeah. With and the kettlebell being, you can carry that as your workout. It said much better, but I always remember that quote from him. Well, I don't know if they still do it. They probably do. But I think the story is that the Russian military, everybody is issued a kettlebell, and the men have to carry 24 kilograms. So about 58 pounds. So they're issued that, and they have to carry it with them everywhere they go, because that's how they get their training. That's super interesting. Yeah. So kettlebells. This podcast sponsored by kettlebells. Strong first. Go and swing them today. All right. Now, Susan, this is the real reason I wanted to have you on, besides just nerding out about kettlebells, is I wanted to talk about your pole fitness apparel and accessories company, Heaux Apparel. First off, love the spelling. It's spelled Heaux, which New Orleans people love to spell anything with an O that way. Yep. Like Super Bowl, it's Beauxl. The one year the Saints went to the Super Bowl, that was everywhere. So we love that spelling of it. And I want to know, why did you want to start this company? So it was out of necessity. In my past life, I
helped to build and grow a wonderful company. And for reasons had to step away from that. And honestly, after building a company for 15, 20 years, I didn't want to go into the work world and work for somebody. I also had just started Pole Fitness, and I realized there was nobody out there doing or providing the service that I wanted to provide, which is to be a place where anyone, but most specifically beginner people, can go and find everything that they might need. Find somebody that can talk them through. A lot of pole is painful in the beginning. And the mindset in a lot of studios is just suck it up and you'll get better. But I know from my years in sport, if it hurts, sometimes you just won't do it. So there's no getting better if you're not doing. So I wanted a place where people could come, they could get answers, they could get products, and we had a little bit of everything. So almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
We're in the warehouse now. I don't have a little bit of everything, but I do have a whole lot of stuff.
We are recording in the warehouse right now. So the backdrop is all the shelves of the different products, which it is really cool because I've seen you start this journey, this business journey, and to just see this whole warehouse now behind you and behind us, it's like, this is amazing. This is super cool.
We were at a family dinner not too long ago, and I said something about my warehouse, and my dad giggled. And I said, what are you laughing at? And he's like, oh, it's just funny that you say you have a warehouse. Well, about 2 weeks later, I had the chance to go to lunch with him. And I said, let's pick up lunch and go eat at the office. And we came in here. He said, oh, you do have a warehouse.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yes, I have a lot of products.
It's so cool. Yeah. And I want to ask you about, because I feel like I think you started pole fitness a little bit before I started improv. When did you start pole fitness?
What, about a year before COVID?
So 2019?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And I started improv 2020. So similar timeframes, though we started something new.
Mm-hmm.
What is that journey of pole fitness and learning all the moves, going to classes? What was that journey like being a beginner for you?
It was nice to suck at something and know that I could only get better. Whereas I was pretty settled in all that I could do prior to that. Like, I knew powerlifting. I knew the pathways to powerlifting. Doesn't mean I was great at it, but I knew what you needed to do. I knew how you got stronger. But powerlifting is also not sexy. So at the time I started pole fitness,
you could make it sexy.
You could. And there are people out there that do.
Yeah. Just their natural sexiness.
Just their natural. I have a friend in New York named Shauna Mendelson who just had this enormously huge bench press, and she's as cute as she can possibly be. But at the time I started pole fitness, I hated the way I looked. I hated myself. I wasn't sexy. Like, none of that was clicking with me. And I had this idea in my brain, oh, I'm getting older. That's just how it is. And one of my friends was like, no, it's not. Why don't you try this thing and see if you can reconnect? So it was nice because it was something I sucked at and I knew I could get better. I could do a lot of the strength moves because I had the powerlifting background. But then it tested my fear around what is sexiness. What is it like to love your body? What is it like to kind of command attention? So it challenged me on all three of those areas.
I like that you say it was nice to suck at something, because I don't think I often view that. The perfectionist in me, I go through this in a lot of episodes, and I notice it when I listen. I'm like, good Lord, I need some help, because the perfectionist in me really affects how I view new things. But when I first tried improv, I was like, God, I suck at this. Like, how am I not good at this? Everyone else is better at it. Like, I would compare myself to others. And I don't think I viewed it as it's nice to suck, or like it's nice to learn.
Don't get me wrong. It wasn't fun.
Okay.
There's nothing fun about sucking. But it was nice to know I was at the bottom of a place that I could only get better. When in my life, I had felt like I had topped out where I could be and there wasn't much more growth. So I guess that's what was nice about it, was I was somewhere where I knew there was a lot of growth potential. But it wasn't fun.
That's a great way to look at it. I remember texting you like, oh, I'm so in my head. Like, I had this terrible scene, and you'd be like, yeah, I'm still learning these moves and they're hard. And I feel like we kind of had that, like, the swirling, new beginner swirling moment together too. It just different things we were doing, but still in that same phase.
But as we've talked, very similar The aspects of starting anything new and sucking are very similar regardless of what it is.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah. And, it takes a special person to suck at it, but come back. Because sometimes we do things we suck at and we're like, I'm never doing that again. That was terrible. Like, that was so cringy. I'm good. Like, I don't want to do that. But there's some kind of enjoyment. There's something calling you back to that class, to the next class, to the next one. And it doesn't really matter what it is. It just keeps you coming back.
I took a class a couple of weeks ago, and at the end of it, it was a pole flow class. So we were learning to string moves together and not stop so that you're actually dancing instead of like, okay, I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do this. So when we were done with the class and we were cooling down, the instructor said, what's one thing that you got from this class that you'll take away that you think you did well? And everybody had something different. And that was a really nice way to sort of bring your brain back around to, like, a lot of shit didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But that one thing did. You left class feeling, a little bit more excited because you had one thing work.
Yeah, I think that's the pressure. I won't speak for everyone. The pressure I put on myself is that it all has to be good. Like, it all has to come together and be quote unquote good, whatever good is. And whereas I've heard other guests have mentioned, just pick one thing to work on and get that thing down. And then you pick another thing. It'll all come together at some point, but it's really high expectations to think that it's going to all come together as a new beginner.
Yes, because it's not.
Right.
It's not even going to all come together if you're an expert.
So
you talk to any expert out there, and they're like, yeah, I flubbed the heck out of that speech or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
I had a session, or I did a workshop with a silver medalist in Olympic lifting from Russia. His name is Dmitry Klokov. And he said the difference in Olympic weightlifting between a beginner and a professional is that when everything goes sideways, a professional knows how to save it.
Oh.
They're able to think the 8 steps ahead and make it all happen to save the lift. Whereas in a beginner, you still have to think, okay, my elbow's not locked out. What steps do I have to do? And so you can't save the lift, right? Because your brain can't process it all. And I thought that was really interesting as well.
Yeah.
Just that thought that the only difference is I can process it faster and get where I need to be.
And you might not have that inner critic in your head going, oh, you did that wrong. Oh, you flubbed that. Oh, your elbow's weird. Oh, why do you have to have such pointy elbows? Like, kind of thing.
Exactly, right? Your brain's gotten rid of all of that, and it's just task at hand.
Yeah.
How do I overcome?
That's cool. Yeah. I've enjoyed having this kind of journey with you in different topics, but it's also very comparable in what we've gone through. And I definitely say we're out of the beginner phase, and, we're just growing. We're in the growth phase.
We're in the growth phase.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It is cool.
And I wanted to ask you too, so with your business, any business you do, you have to put yourself out there. It's a big risk. It's scary. It's taking the leap. And how have you dealt with putting yourself out there in this new business now?
I am terrified every day. But it's interesting because the more I put myself out there and then come in contact with people. So my business is online, but I do in-person events. And at every event, somebody will come up to me and say, hey, I saw that video, or I watched your live, or I saw your reel. Thank you for that. Or I learned something. And if I just, God, you hear this, it's so cliche. I just reach one person with my message.
That's the public health mantra for sure.
Just one person.
Just one person benefits. It's all worth it.
And I know that's lame, but that's what keeps me going, is I know I'm on the right track because people tell me I'm on the right track. I had one girl say, I watched your live. It was great information. You need to do more of those.
Oh.
And then she said, the more you do it, the better you'll feel about them. And she stopped and she said, just so you know, I thought it was great.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not feeling good about it, the more you do them, the better you'll feel. Yep. And that was great. That was just from a customer, right?
You have to get through that cringe factor. Yeah.
And realize the person on the other end isn't seeing what they're just seeing you present your information. They're not critiquing you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We are our own worst critics. 100%. I know we are for sure our own worst critics, but most people are their own worst critics. But even when you were first starting out, and maybe this is a pole fitness thing in general, is to record yourself. Is that normal?
Yep.
Yeah, so you would post all these videos of you trying new moves and in your classes, and you were worried initially what people thought, right? Or you were like, I'm not really doing this well, but I'm just going to post it.
I posted it for me, right?
Okay.
Because a lot of what my original journey was to get over hating myself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my ways of doing that was just post the videos, put it out there. Luckily, I don't have millions of followers, right? So I don't have trolls. I just have my friends.
I mean, some would argue family members can be kind of
That is a true statement. That is a true statement.
Sometimes, yeah.
But what I found was I'd put out a video and I'd be like, God, this is awful. And like 25 people would be like, you go, girl, looking amazing. Oh my God, you got that better than you did the last time.
I could never do what you're doing. That's so cool.
Yep. I mean, look my worst. And one of my guy friends would say, like, looking sexy. Like, what? Like, that's the whole point of this is to look sexy. And now I have someone telling me I look sexy. Yes. Like, I'm killing it.
Goal achieved. Yes.
I'm done. I am now a professional. Moving on.
But it's so true. There are probably 80%, I'm making up this figure, 80% of people who look at your videos and go, I could never do that. I would never try. My body doesn't move the way. I wouldn't even allow myself to try. Like, I could never do the thing that you're doing. So they just automatically like look at you in a higher level, in a higher light, because you're doing the thing rather than them watching the thing. That's what happens in public speaking too. I assume a little bit with improv, but a lot of times, at least where I'm at, you're in front of other improvisers. So there's not that, but with public speaking for sure, most people are saying, I could never do that. So you're automatically looked at. You're given some grace, even though we don't give ourselves grace. You are given some grace by the audience.
But another thing, think about a time when you've been on social media and you've seen one of your friends post a video where they put themselves out there and you were like, ugh, shouldn't have done that. That's terrible. Why it doesn't happen?
Never. I'm like, wow, look at them. That's so cool. Like, they're doing their thing.
They're doing their thing. So what would make you think that somebody, like one of the people that loves you, would look at your video and be like, Dana's doing improv? Stupid.
Right. Right. It's so true. It's so true. But it's this like pressure that we put on ourselves. Yeah, that's so true.
People in general want to support you.
Yeah, and I forget that. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe it's like the sports background, that everything was so competitive growing up. And it wasn't, but maybe that's the story. I don't know. Yeah, there's a whole lot of growth going on right now in this growth phase that we're still in. But yeah, people generally want to support you. And there will be some haters. And honestly, I hear people say, if you have haters, then you're doing something right. Like, if everyone likes you, then you're catering to the masses and you're not really being yourself. Like, be yourself. Not everyone's going to like yourself. That's okay. You'll find your crowd, your people.
Cat Williams has a little comedy sketch about that where he's like, if you got 10 haters, go out and get 15 because 10 is not enough. You are not pissing off enough people. You are not achieving your goals. You are not going out there getting it if you just have 10. So work harder and have 15. It's a great little comedy sketch. And that man is a freaking gold mine. Just a gold mine. He's amazing.
Nice. That's awesome. I love that message. Yeah. Get some more haters. That means you're doing something right. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, and so how do you see your business growing in the future? How do you want to expand it?
So I've started a podcast called the Hoecast.
Woo!
Thanks to you, because I've seen your journey. Basically, what I want is to put out as much education as I can in this space. So 2023, as we're sitting here, we can see my whiteboard with my newsletter breakdown. I want to write more blogs. I want to have more fun content and more engagement with my customers, and at the same time be bringing on products. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want that to go hand in hand. So when we talk about improv, I am going to start something called #Freestyle Friday.
Yeah.
Where the rules are going to be loose, but basically in the morning I'll wake up, I'll scroll through my music, not pick a song, land on a song. Okay. Whatever song it is, I have to dance to. And then I'll encourage the people that follow me on social media to do the same thing. So they can either pick my song, like and let it be way out of their comfort zone, because with my music you never know what
it's a full range.
It is a full range.
Could be Rage Against the Machine or Bob Marley or Prince.
Neil Diamond,
Yeah.
like musicals, like, so you just never know. So they can pick the song I do, or they can do the same thing and shuffle and pick a song. And then you just go live, you post your flow, and then you move on with your day in an attempt to get us out of our heads. When you take classes, a lot of studios will have flow classes, but it's kind of hard to teach.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of have to do it. It's like improv. You just have to do it. So this is sort of the dance version of improv.
You have to be comfortable with whatever happens. You
happens.
cannot plan ahead. Certainly you can be prepared if some things come up, but usually what comes up is might be unexpected, and you have to be okay with the unexpected too.
One of our rules in pole dancing is when in doubt, twerk it out.
Oh.
So if you totally forget, you have no idea what to do next, just start twerking. And while you're making your booty pop, just think about, okay, when I go back to the pole, I'm going to do this. So we always have that safety net.
I want to encourage our improviser friends to just maybe try that out. Like if you're in a scene that you're like, I don't know where this is going, just stop and twerk it out.
I guarantee you people will be entertained.
They sure will.
Guarantee it.
And then, hey, that's just a happy accident, I don't know, or choice, happy choice that could lead to something else. So
when in doubt, twerk it out.
Oh, I love that. Great motto to live by overall, too.
Yes, it is. And if you're not familiar with twerk, because I don't know what your audience, I don't know how familiar people are around the world.
Yeah.
It's just the happiest form of dance that there is. There are 99 plus ways to twerk. I am a certified twerk technician, very bottom of the rung. But in our certification, 99 ways to twerk. There's a history to that form of dance. There are cultural significances in countries throughout the world. It's a pretty big thing. So if you don't embrace it, you should. It's a lot of fun.
I didn't know there was such thing as a CTT, a certified twerk technician. Uh-huh. That's you. Uh-huh. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we called it popping when I was younger. That's the same thing.
The same thing.
Yeah. And then twerk came along, at least for me, like in college, twerking, that term, twerking, the term. Which sounds much cooler than popping, I would say.
Well, and it may be that it just took that long to filter out from its roots, because I think it's been culturally rooted for a very long time with that terminology.
Okay.
And then some of the music, specific hip hop songs started to mention specific moves. And so those moves, people that had been twerking knew.
Yeah.
And as those moves came out in songs and the people would do it when it was called out in the song, then it sort of filters out and up through different dance scenes.
Yeah. That's cool to know the history.
Sorry, I'm such a nerd. We are talking about everything but improvising.
Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah. And actually, I do want to take a little break and then switch gears and talk about improvising and how it relates to your pole fitness, dancing, and all that too. So let's take a quick break and then we'll talk about some improv stuff and maybe some other stuff too. We'll see what comes up. All right, and we're back with Susan Bartley talking about kettlebells, pole fitness, twerking, talking about all the things here that you may not have known, but now you know now. So that's pretty awesome. And to kind of add in improv here, first off, Susan, I know that you did drama and theater when you were younger in high school and stuff. And when I told you I was doing improv classes, you were like, oh, just like super uncomfortable. Yep. Can I ask why you were so uncomfortable with improv?
First off, there were 12 seniors in high school drama, in my senior high school drama, 12 of us. I was the only one that was not cast in the senior production. Oh. I wasn't stage manager. I was nothing.
Oh,
so
no.
That's how bad I was at acting. We did a Saturday Night Live style lunch break a couple times a year.
Oh, fun.
And so it's like the juniors do all the prep work, the seniors are the actors.
Okay.
So that year I was in one scene. They were all improvised. The grandmother and the grandfather in a rocking chair on the front porch with the granddaughter sitting between them coloring, and the granddaughter has a paper bag over her head.
Oh, okay. Good start.
And nobody acknowledges it. So every time the little girl asks, like, can we go to church on Sunday? Grandma and grandpa are like, no, you just need to sit right there. And like, so you got the feeling that there was something hideously wrong with the little girl. She didn't understand it. Nobody talked about it. And it was super like, I don't know, the stress of the scene. But because we didn't know how to improvise, we didn't know how to cut scenes, or we didn't know how to play amongst each other. Like, it was just awful and cringy. And I think they had to walk on stage and be like, that's it. Scene over.
Oh God, no.
You three get off the stage. So
you were the little
I was
girl?
the little girl.
Oh no.
Because it was decided that I had the least amount of talent amongst the three. So yeah.
Oh, no.
So that's improv for me previously.
I mean, did you all practice improv? Did you do some games? So
we did some games. We did do some games, but it was, I mean, those of you that have done theater in high school, like, theater teachers are always like loud, and they're like, they have all this excitement and emote. Yes. And if you are shy, you're like, ugh. And I was very shy, so she could never get me to give anything. Yeah. So it was uncomfortable.
I'm so sorry. That's a little traumatic. The paper bag over the head. Also, could you breathe under there?
Yeah, because it was one of the big grocery bags, so I could breathe. Yeah,
Okay.
it just was weird.
Okay, I can see why that affected your view of improv. Even you say watching improv sometimes makes you nervous too. Because you're very caring about others. You want everyone to be happy, and so on stage you might think, oh, they're struggling. Oh, they're nervous. I'm nervous for them.
Yes, it makes me very nervous.
Even experienced people like Middleditch and Schwartz. Have you watched that on Netflix?
I haven't. I mean, whose line is it anyway? And they're a genius, right? Like, it's the most amazing thing. I think that was the other thing is I don't know how people do it. Like, how do you make a commercial about toenail fungus? And then all of a sudden it's this 3-part harmony song and dance that they've made up on the fly.
Right.
So I think part of that's overwhelming.
It is. And they are very talented too. For short form, sometimes you're giving parameters too. So like the who, what, where. That is helpful at least. Okay. We are coworkers making a toenail fungus commercial that at least like zones it in on what you have to focus on.
And it may be that we just didn't do actual improv. And it was more like, you three go up on stage, do a scene now. So as you talk about some of the rules and some of the different forms, there are definitely ones that I think I could excel at.
Yeah. Well, I am slowly trying to convince you or get you to open up more about improv. And you're doing Freestyle Fridays. So, I mean, that's you embracing some improvisation, maybe without even thinking of it as improv. Or are you thinking of it as improv?
A little bit. I also have this job, like a side job, at the nursing school, USC nursing school.
Oh, yeah.
I play what they call a standard patient. So when the nurses have to practice scenarios, I'm the patient that they practice the scenarios on. And it didn't click for a while, but one of the cool things is, so say the scenario is, I come in, I'm having chest pain, single female, like you may think that what the scene is supposed to be about is them doing the workup to figure out if I'm having a heart attack or not. Mm-hmm. But what I've realized, if I actually read the notes, that what they're being tested on is, how do they approach the patient? What empathy do they use? Do they use overly medical terms, or are they able to use language that is appropriate to the situation?
Connect with you.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of them are being kind of tested on. The medical stuff's is really the easy stuff.
Right.
But it's the face-to-face interaction. And so, like, once I get into character, you go and you have to make it uncomfortable for them, right? Mm-hmm. Because being a nurse is not comfortable. Like,
absolutely not. Yeah.
You don't have golden patients every time. So ever, right?
Yeah.
So I think I have developed improv skills.
And you get called back. They want you a lot. So I think you're doing something right.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been a pregnant lady, right? Who didn't like the baby.
Super bougie. Like, I don't want to touch my baby after birth because that's gross. Like, No, I'm not going to breastfeed because my boobs are too perky. Like I've seen what that does to boobs, and I've been a schizophrenic in the height of taking the ER with this in the middle of a schizophrenic break.
You've talked to aliens, right? Or is that
part of that one was the aliens.
Yeah.
A couple of scenarios where I come in to visit a family. It's usually my boyfriend that's had surgery, and they code while I'm in there. That one is more about how the students manage the code and a family member. There are a bunch of them where I'm just a family member. One, I'm the mother of a young boy that has a port wine birthmark.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that one's interesting because the little boy is played by a mannequin that talks.
Oh. Okay.
And then there's me. So I have to create a mother-son relationship with a mannequin and not break.
Right. And you play it really well because some of the students think that you are pregnant, right?
I've had them ask if I was pregnant. I've had them ask how many children I have. I have 0 children. I've never been pregnant. I get the schizophrenic one. Like I've had the nurse that walked the proctor go get other proctors. You're like, you need to watch her because this is how we need to teach people to play this character.
You're the standard. You're the gold standard of nursing school improv right there. Nursing school actors.
Well, because I figure they've got to get the best. Like it can't just be lame because if it's lame, they're not learning anything.
Right. And some of them do break. Like they can't see you as the scenario, right?
Right.
Yeah. Some of them have a hard time just accepting this scene that you're trying to create too, or they won't allow themselves.
And I have learned to say something totally outrageous and then just look at them with doe eyes and blink a lot.
Well, that's a good move.
And it forces them to have to come back at me.
Oh.
So they have to say something. They have to keep the communication going. And I usually use that when I can tell one of the students is getting mad at my character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in their minds, they know in the back of their minds they're being tested. Like this isn't a real life scenario, but it really could be.
But it could be.
And they will come into that at some point.
Yep. The pregnancy one triggers a lot of, like I did one recently and one of the girls, I was like, hey, that skin-to-skin contact thing, like, can you do it? Like that's gross. I don't want to do it. And she looked at me and she goes, oh, I can't wait until I can bond with my infant like that. And I just looked at her and I was like, ew.
Ew.
And then I just stood and just blinked. And so she had to figure out obviously what she tried wasn't going to bond with me.
Mm-hmm.
So she had to kind of flip her script.
How can you connect on another level? Even if you don't agree with what they're saying, how can you still connect with the patient?
Yeah, they're supposed to connect with me. I'm not supposed to connect with them.
Right.
So I can't be the one to change what I'm saying to make it easier for them.
Exactly.
They got to figure out how to work with me.
I love it. That's so fun. I think I've said it multiple times, like, this is the role you were born for in multiple scenarios that you've gotten and you've played really well. Too.
The schizophrenic one recently was fun because I pulled Beyonce's Alien Superstar, the song off of the new album. And so the whole thing was that we knew Beyonce was an angel, but I've actually learned she's an alien. And it's all in that song. So she's an alien and she's a superstar. She's telling us, but she's not supposed to be. So I have to keep her safe.
Right.
Because now the world knows she's an alien superstar because she couldn't hide it anymore. But I have to get to her to keep her safe and let the world know that she's actually an angel. So it's this whole big thing. And they try to laugh, right? Like they're giggling. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, like I'm not in the medical field, so just getting that, it's like, woo, that's a lot.
And I'll do the whole, like, it's in the song. It's called Alien Superstar. And then I just blink.
Yes, ma'am. I like Beyonce as well.
But have you heard her new album?
I like You Won't Break My Soul.
No, the new album. Have you heard the new album? Have you heard Alien Superstar? Because that's where she wrote it all down. It's right there.
Okay, I'm so happy to see you so passionate about that. Yeah, so I have no idea. Yeah. Like that's good stuff. I
write on the whiteboard, like we must save her, like over and over again.
And I imagine for nurses wanting to help heal and help people feel more comfortable, feel better, like kind of problem solvers in improv. I'll relate this back to improv. You don't solve people's problems. you actually like kind of accept them or you allow them to work in the scene or something. But that's a big lesson learned throughout improv classes is you don't have to solve people's problems. Actually,
Right.
you don't. You actually learn to let it guide the scene and let it lead to something else.
Well, and the nurses, they have to figure out how to solve the problem. So in that schizophrenic one,
Right.
they're supposed to give me a shot to calm me down.
Uh-huh.
But I won't stop writing on the whiteboard.
Right.
And half of them will try to be authoritarian. No, ma'am, we need you to come and sit down on the bed.
Mm.
They don't get it.
Uh-huh.
The ones that get it will say, I understand this is very important to you. Do you mind if we give you the shot while you are writing? Or they'll say, if you just let us give you the shot, we promise we'll let you go back to your writing. I even had one say, Anna's going to step in and she's going to continue writing for you. We'll give you your shot and then you can go back. So about half of them understand that they've got to work the problem. They've got to figure out
work
a way.
with you
Work
to
with
help
me.
solve the problem. Yeah, because being authoritarian is just not going to help. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to listen. Yeah. And
I
most
tell them,
patients,
right? Because you're not in my reality. This is my reality.
Yeah.
My reality right now is that Beyonce is an alien and I have to protect her. So you telling me that's not the case? I don't care.
Right.
I don't care what you have to say because you're not in my reality.
Mhm.
So I tell them to get in my reality, look out, and then it'll help them figure out. And I assume that's a lot like improv. So I come to you and we're in a scene and I'm a groundhog farmer.
Yeah. I have to accept that.
And then you have to sort of figure out what the hell a groundhog farmer does. And if you're a groundhog wedding planner, how do those two things fit together?
Well, then I think we're peas in a pod characters at that point. If we're both into groundhogs, then we're peas in a pod. Like we like the same thing, but like absurd and logic, that's another stance where there's someone who's more absurd thinking, like maybe a groundhog farmer is a little different from the reality we're used to, and then the logical or grounded person will say, like, you don't want to yuck their yum. Like,
right.
You don't want to keep telling them no. You want to at least help kind of play with what their game is. Maybe you have a game too. So supporting while also not letting you go like to space with your
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have 18 million groundhogs on my farm.
Right, and they're starting to mate with each other, and that is becoming 36 million groundhogs.
Groundhog meat. This is the next revolution. I promise you. It's going to be big.
Yeah, but it's really hard to cook groundhog meat. There's actually
groundhog meat. Jeez, we've been eating groundhog meat since I was a little bitty girl.
See, if your high school teacher could just see you now,
if she could,
look at you now.
Yeah. I can make up a scene about a groundhog farmer.
Mm-hmm. You're doing great. Well, and I love the healthcare kind of improv, which they don't call it that, but the training of the nurses. You know, I had a healthcare improv person or healthcare improv facilitator on the podcast recently too, talking about these kind of same topics of communication and connecting with the patients and how it can help. It really does help.
Well, you know what I just realized? So how many times in a setting have they been like, let's do some role play? And everyone groans because role play is like the worst.
In a training and stuff.
Right.
Or even let's break out into groups and you're like, oh, dear God, I just want to get out of this.
But if they did it as, we're going to play a little game.
Uh-huh.
And you could get people behind it.
Yeah, we're going to play a game. We're going to do a little exercise, but there's fun parameters to it. Maybe it's phrased as play. Yeah, that word play might help.
Well, and role play exercises always seem so weird.
Role play does have the word play.
Yeah, but it's like a weird, and nobody's ever ready for it, and you don't have any prep time, and it's like we've spent 3 hours talking about how to be a dictatorial principal. Now let's role play, and you get to be the jackass, and they get to be like I don't know. It's always weird.
That's so. I haven't thought of that, but I've been in trainings where it's like, dear God, please don't make me break out into groups. And it's funny that I'm leading that now, but it's as the facilitator, you've got to set the scene. You've got to make it safe for people to want to participate in those kind of, I'll say role play scenarios, but maybe worded in a different way. Exercises, games. We're gonna play, and you'll learn from this play. You'll experience the skills.
Well, and you build on. Right? It's not like, okay, we're going to improvise a 3-hour scene. Go. Right?
I would never ask anyone to do that, including myself. 3-hour scenes a lot. Well, and thinking about my sessions and doing public speaking too, so I know your improv story. What about public speaking? Do you love it or do you hate it?
I can do it. It doesn't bother me. I've sung at church most of my life and led, like played the guitar and been the lead vocal at church services. I do music with small children. So standing up in front of people and talking is not something that's hard for me. I may not be great at it, but I'm not scared to do it.
Yeah. I get that. And that is something I wanted to ask you about too, is your singing, because you like to create little CDs with songs that you sing. Maybe you cover certain songs. I have one of your CDs from a few years ago in my car. What calls you to create these CDs too?
Because music moves me. So this was part of my whole pole journey, and realizing that I was doing music for other people to learn. And I have a bunch of music out there that speaks to just me, right? Like if I said some of the names of the musicians, the artists, the songs, most people are like, who the hell is that? But there's songs I found that have just like resonated throughout my life. And I'm working to kind of record those in the recording studio. I do the vocals and then they hire the musicians.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, that's huge. Just someone who has no musical talent, seeing you do that, I'm like, that's so cool that you do that. And that's kind of a creative outlet for you, right?
It is. And it's great fun because you always want, if you're doing a cover, which is what I do, I don't write my own music. You don't want to do an exact cover. Okay. So you want to have your own flair to it. And a lot of the musicians that they bring in are really good. So they can be like, here's the song, here's her vocal track. Now you just go do your thing. So all the musicians improvise. Like we don't have sheet music in front of us. They're just kind of doing their thing. And watching that happen from a musical standpoint is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, you're recording a CD right now, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Yep, I am.
How many tracks will be on it?
I think 7.
Nice.
I go in next week to lay down vocals on either I Try by Macy Gray. Do you remember that song?
Yeah. That was on one of the Now CDs, I feel like.
Well, she's amazing, and her voice is amazing, and that song is amazing. And so it's either that or this incredibly obscure song called Calling All Angels, Canadian artist named Jane Seabury. And then most people know Katie Lang, maybe not.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like a duet, but it's a Jane Seabury song. And if you saw that horrible movie, Pay It Forward, do you remember that terrible, god-awful thing? Yeah,
I think we had to watch it in like religion class in high school or something.
The worst movie. I am not.
Haley Joel Osment.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So at the very end of that movie, I will not tell you how it ends. I will tell you it's a horrible movie and don't go watch it.
Yeah, there are some spoilers. Yeah.
At the very end of that movie, you pan out and you see this long line of cars, and it's a very touching part of the movie, and they play this song Calling All Angels. And I knew it before, and then we watched that horrible movie, and then that song played, and I completely fell apart because the song's always been. But if you Google it and you listen to it, you're going to be like, what is this song? It's really hard to sing, but when Katie Lang comes in at her part, it literally makes my soul tremble. Like, I love her voice so much. So it's going to be one of those 2 songs.
How do you have you sung it yet?
I have.
How was it getting through that part, like the goosebumps part?
The problem with that song is Jane Seabury is very high. Katie Lang is very low. I will be doing both parts. So we haven't exactly figured out how to make that work.
And how are your CDs? I know you don't give it out to everyone. There's a select few. I'm on the list of the CDs. How do people receive these CDs that you give them?
Well, I've just started uploading things to SoundCloud.
Okay, that seems putting yourself out there more.
So if you search birthday cake without the H on SoundCloud, you can find a couple of. Honestly, I haven't given them to a lot of people because what I've found is that if you don't give it to the right person, and this is family members included, they critique it. And excuse me, I know this isn't a cussing thing, but I don't fucking want your critique. I want you to say this is amazing.
Yeah.
Right? I'm giving this present to you, and it's a piece of me.
I've created this. I realize it is not God's gift to the earth.
Right. And I'm not a great musician, but this is my labor of love. And if I give you something and you say, you are a little pitchy on the 3rd song, that's it. you're done. So
You're cut off the list.
You're cut off the list. So the reason and actually, Dana, you may be one of 3 people that I can give things to that take it for what it is and don't give me feedback, anything other than that's amazing. You did the thing. I love it so much.
Well, I really do enjoy your CD too. It's in my car because my car still has a CD player. Some cars don't now, but Priscilla the Prius has a CD player. And I love number 7 on the most recent one that you've put out, Come Sail Your Ships.
The Ship Song by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds is the greatest song ever.
I don't think I know that song.
You wouldn't.
Yeah. I sometimes when I'm like low or in a mood, I'll put it on and sing with you. And it's cool that it's your voice. It's a really beautiful song. And that's one of my favorites on your CD.
So one, Nick Cave that sings that, it has a really low voice, really low voice. He's just amazing. So, so the words to that are, come sail your ships around me and burn your bridges down. And if that is not the perfect wording for what love is,
yeah,
right? Like it's all about, we make a little history, baby, every time you come around. And that sort of, I don't know. The lyrics are just absolutely genius, I think. He's a genius.
Well, and going back to the people who critique you, it's usually the people who critique that could never do it themselves, too. Like, they would never create their own CD of music and sing and put themselves out there, but they could certainly critique it. And I think maybe the people, and I'm just throwing out there as a theory, the people who are like, this is amazing, they recognize how hard it was for you to do the thing. Just a theory.
Well, and it's interesting because it can be people that are super close to you, a mother, a sister, a boyfriend, a husband. I mean, I've had plenty of people that have listened to my CD and said, I really wish you'd done different songs.
Okay.
And missed the fact that I did the songs that, like, I'm not doing songs for you.
Right. Here's the suggestion box. Right. Please put your suggestion in there for next time. Sure.
So that's always interesting to me as well. Like, I don't create for other people. I create for myself. And if you like it, great. If you don't, get on about your business.
Yeah. I think just the simple fact that you're creating, you have this creative outlet, it soothes your soul. It just helps you grow in so many ways. That's amazing to me. Because again, I could never do it. I'm not a singer. I'm not a musician. I could never do it. But the fact that you have this outlet is super cool, because sometimes we reserve recording studios for musicians, artists, people who are, out there, and it can be accessible for everyone who's willing to pay for it and has the time, but it can be accessible to everyone. That's why I like podcasting too, because it is accessible now to everyone. Yeah.
And easy to do.
Yeah. And certainly I remember my first podcast, my mom listened to it and she was like, well, it was good, but you said a lot of yeahs. And for someone who was struggling with just the beginner phase and the growth phase and hearing that, I was like, oh God, now I say a lot of yeahs too. Like, it's hard to hear those critiques.
Well, and I don't think they're necessary. There's a time and place to critique something. And usually it's when somebody asks you to critique.
Yes. Yeah.
I have a new podcast. Can you please listen to it and tell me what you think I could do differently next time?
That opens it up for, well, you said a lot of yes.
Right. And if I get my feelings hurt, I can get in my feels.
Right.
But I've asked you to do that.
Yeah.
So, but giving it to somebody as a labor of love, and then they say you're a bit pitchy on song 3.
Right.
God.
Well, I just did a time check, and not that I want to cut this off, but we have to get to our sexy lyra.
We do have to
class.
get sexy lyra.
Just a background, I did a lyra class last year when I was in town. Susan treated me to a lyra class, and I have a whole video. I'll repost it again. And I was so excited, and I really allowed myself to be a beginner. It was super fun. So we're going back for round 2, this time sexy lyra, which is quite intimidating to me to have to try to be sexy. So that's cool. But we do need to get to that.
Get to it,
yeah. Because Beyonce, the instructor, is teaching us, and that'll be great fun. I'm really excited. And thank you for the session, too.
Oh, you're welcome.
Organizing it. And thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Will you please tell our listeners where they can find out more about you? I
will. So if you go to our website, HeuxApparel.com, and we spell Heaux for the website, HEAUXXX HouxApparel.com. I added the 3 X's because it's pole dancing and that's super fun. Or you can find us on Instagram at Heaux, just 1X _ apparel. And we're on Facebook. I don't know what that is. I think if you just
I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah. And now your SoundCloud too.
SoundCloud is Birthday Cake, BirthDayCake. And the Hoecast is my podcast, and that's on pretty much everything: Amazon, Spotify, Apple.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
Google.
we're doing a pod swap.
We are.
And I was on one of your first episodes as you were testing it out, and we talked about improv and pole dancing and how, like, freestyling basically and flowing. So that was a fun one, and I'm glad we could swap back and have you on this one.
I am too. I feel like this is a much more confident episode than I was in that when you came on the Hoecast.
Yeah. So we were getting through the cringe at that point. That's my term. Getting through the cringe, working through it, kind of figuring out what works, what doesn't. But I've listened to some of your episodes too with pole dancers and such, and they're so fun. And I'm not in the pole dancing world, but I can relate to a lot of things that are said, and it's cool to listen to a new world that I'm not familiar with.
Awesome. Well, I hope that your listeners will like it as well. The Hoecast.
Woo! And there's a cute little jingle.
It's a great jingle. And if you go on our website and you click on the Hoecast up at the top, you can also see my friend, the Showstopper, who is part of the P-Valley choreography team. She's also on P-Valley. She's the most amazing human being you will ever see. She did a little dance routine to our jingle, and it's amazing. So check her out, The Big Show.
That's so
the
cool.
Showstopper.
I did watch P-Valley the first season. Haven't watched the second season yet, but it is cool and very dramatic, but it's super cool.
It's awesome.
Pole dancing moves. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening and joining us today. And we appreciate you supporting Improvly Speaking, and we'll talk to you next time.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks, Dana.
And thank you for listening to today's episode. If we have anyone who wants to get into pole fitness or is already doing pole fitness and wants to check out Susan's website, I have a discount code that she gave me for this episode. You can use 5 off now. That's 5 OFFNOW if you want to get $5 off your purchase. I imagine we have some improvising pole fitness extraordinary creatives out there who are listening to this. And also she has some really cool stuff on her website. Got some cool t-shirts and other accessories. So you can go to HouxApparel.com. That's HEAUXXX apparel.com and use the code 5 off now. Kind of saying that one, 5 off now, to get some discounts off your purchases. Also, I really love Susan's story about her journey and why she started her business. And I love how she said it was nice to suck at something. When she first started her pole journey, it was very hard. It was difficult. She sucked at it. It was a tremendous challenge. And although she said later, like, it was really hard and it was not fun to suck in this process, but it was nice to know that she wasn't good at something. And she said for her, it was nice to know that she was starting at the ground level and there was only room to grow upwards from there. And I just love how she framed that, because I will say I get caught in the weeds and I get stuck in my head all the time of saying, like, I'm not good at this. I'm not good enough. Why am I still doing this? It feels hard. It feels uncomfortable. It feels cringy. I feel all the things. And I don't always think of it in a positive way either. So just kudos for her for recognizing that this is hard, and that's a good thing, that she's starting on the ground floor and she's going to work her way up. And she has. Oh my God. I've seen her from the beginning of this journey. I remember when she texted me that she was going to start the business, and I was like, okay, cool, great idea. And it was a great idea, and I just wasn't sure how serious she was about it. And oh my God, she has made it happen. She's made it happen, and it's grown and blossomed into this amazing company. And she has her own podcast now, and I was on it too. I was one of her first guests. to help her test out her equipment and stuff. And also, improv relates to everything. So it related really well to pole dancing and how, things that are going on inside your head. Certainly, improv can help with that. So it was a really good episode. Please go check that one out too from our pod swap. I'm just so happy for her. I really am. And I really loved this episode and just how giggly and silly we were. Oh, and I do have to share. So after the episode, because we had to go, we were late. And that's my fault. I'm late to almost everything, which I have absolutely all control over. But we finished recording and we literally hit the stop record button and rushed out the door so that we could get to the lyra class that she scheduled for us to go to. So let me tell you a little bit about that. It was a private lyra class, so it was just us two there. And Beyonce, the instructor, taught us a little routine. This was at Elysium Aerial Fitness in Columbia, South Carolina. I was visiting for the holidays. And she taught us a little routine for about an hour, and then we recorded it at the end. And if you don't know lyra, I learned about this last year, but it's basically like a big metal hoop that can be hung from the ceiling and then, draped down, and you can certainly hang it higher so that you're farther away from the ground, or hang it a little lower so that it's, if you fall or anything, you don't fall too far. And there's usually mats underneath. Safety first, of course. So last year, Susan and I did a regular lyra class where I eventually hung upside down, and then I got into the lyra and did some moves there, and it was great fun. I will post that video too, just so you can see the difference. This year, it was more of a sexy lyra class. So it was more like dancing and movement, and we did some things with the lyra, but it wasn't as much let's say acrobatic moves or no, I don't want to give you the false impression. I didn't do a whole lot of acrobatics last year, but it wasn't so much like strength moves. It was more like flowy dance type moves and looking sexy and exotic and all about the movement. I had a great time. I really did. I really enjoyed this one. I feel like we got into the moves and I got the choreo pretty quickly. I know she keeps it simple and easy for a 1 hour lyra class, but hey, we strung together some nice moves and it was fun. So I will post that video so you can see. I'm so grateful for Susan treating me to something new and different and challenging. I remember I did this a little bit last year. Usually when I try something new, I tend to take a jokey approach out of it. Like if I'm trying something new and I mess up, oh, haha, that's funny. Like I'm so uncoordinated, haha, or I'm so this is not my thing, haha. And I will make jokes about it. That's my defense mechanism for sure, is making jokes or self-deprecating jokes. And actually, this time, and I made a conscious decision to do it and not do it, I really didn't make any jokes. I just listened. I made mistakes. I listened to the feedback and the cues and the instructions, and I just tried to do it as myself, as my full self. Just tried to do it without getting into my head or making jokes or excuses about why I couldn't do it. And this was a very pleasant session because I wasn't so in my head. I just was enjoying it. So it was a really good time. So now I want to ask you, how do you handle new things? Do you get really jokey about it and kind of like, oh, I messed up. Of course I messed up. I'm new at this. Haha. Or this isn't my thing, but I'm trying it anyway. Or do you just try to do the thing and learn from it? How do you handle that? I thought that was an interesting observation I had. And I don't know, I'm curious to hear how you handle new things. Let me know what you thought about this episode and anything you learned from it or takeaways. I'm always happy to hear what you have learned. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Improvly Speaking, or on LinkedIn, I'm at Dana Gowan, or my email is Dana, Dayna, at improvispeaking.com. I hope to hear from you, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much, so much for listening and supporting Improvly Speaking. I'll talk to you next time.